Hello to everyone and the internet. It is currently Moon Day, January 21st. I am Nathan of Washington. You are watching Culture Shock, the only show on the internet that knows how to separate an issue of culture from an issue of politics. And this is the news. Alright everybody, Finland sees new record highs of teenage rape victims. And the Islam Party of Canada declares Islam as the native religion of Canada. There are two major stories I'm going to share with you today. These refugee groups usually groom or otherwise find victims through social media, typically. Social media, gaming apps, you name it. No one is really the villain in their own story. These Middle Eastern cultures usually have values that kind of make it seem like if these actions of rape and abuse are not like fully taboo, they're at least sort of okay, but not particularly encouraged. It's in a gray area. But different values mean that we cannot really afford to commingle because they're not compatible. They're crisscrossing, rubbing up against each other, and causing problems. I mean, how hard is the concept to understand? But from their perspective, they think what they're doing is okay. It's not, but they think it. But they think it's okay, because again, no one's the villain in their own story. But the Finnish police are investigating yet another rape of a teenage girl, and the investigation is currently ongoing. And there's not much information yet, other than that a conviction seems fairly clear. It's just a matter of time. But Finland's Prime Minister, let's see if I can pronounce this name right without like completely ruining it. Juha Sipilä, Juhasipila, and at the end of the A, it's like got a little umlaut on it. I think it flattens it or rounds it. I'm not sure. But tweeting out, as a result of the inhuman and reprehensible events in Oulu and Helsinki, the government will meet next week in negotiations both on Tuesday and Friday. Essentially, I think they should just send all asylum seekers from the Middle East, all migrants, just send them all home. All of them. Like, oh, what about the biblical story about, like, Sodom and Gomorrah? God spared the city because they found at least one good person. No. He took the good person, pulled him out of there, and then destroyed the city, if you're going to go that route. And really, it's not worth the risk if there are at least a few good migrants. It's not the risk to suffer under the misbehavior of the rest. Right? I think at this point you got to say that your figurative lot doesn't matter. If you really want to, you can take Lot and then destroy everyone else. You know, send them back home. Is what you should do. I would just send them all instead of bothering with trying to find if there's any of them that aren't, you know, criminals. Just send them all home and for the sake of your own people, please. It's not worth it. You want to end up like Germany? And as to the bottom line is the Finns are getting raped and murdered at an increasing rate. Not good. And it's mostly among the teenage population, which is actually pretty sickening. Man, you're going through puberty and you're finally learning about sex and becoming an adult, and this is how you're introduced to sexuality? With violent, non-consensual rape? What kind of life you're going to have after that, man? But Canada declares Islam as the native religion of Canada. By the definition of the word native, no, not really. But sadly, this is happening. This is a thing. As much as I don't want to admit it, it is happening. And if we here in the United States end up getting attacked by an Islamic Canada, I'll be sure to fight. I'll join the military and I'll fight back to protect my country, since you're obviously not willing to protect yours. Remember, anything that pretty much happens to you is also going to happen to affect us because, well, we're your neighbors down south. But essentially, the Islam Party wants to introduce Sharia law. Jawad Anwar is the leader of this party, and he names his chief critic, Tariq Fatwa, an enemy of Islam. Equivalent to basically apostasy. And Justin Trudeau has been seen standing smiling comfortably with these obvious extremists. Wow, that dude. What a pushover. He just does whatever he does just so he won't have any haters. But in that process, he's going to get haters, you know. He's just, sorry, I don't like using this term, but I think he's a cuck. But if you import the third world, you basically become the third world. These people don't assimilate, they just bring their values with them. And that's what's going to be ultimately transformative. Bottom line, it was Western values that created Canada, not Islamic values, and the United States for that matter. But Christianity will not save you. There is no meaningful difference between the two. They both originate from the same Middle East. And there's a lot of things that people think are in the Bible that there actually aren't. Western values were not established by Christianity. They were established by capitalism and paganism. And that is a truth that unfortunately a lot of people want to reject because they'd rather wear their Jesus blinders. I mean, Christianity's not going to make it any worse, but they're not going to help either. The only thing that's going to help is sticking with Western values and forcing the Middle Easterners to go back home. Not really violently, but with as much force as I think is merited. I'll take the Haushofer position. The Truth and Reconciliation Committee now claims that the killings of MLK, JFK, RFK, and Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and Robert something Kennedy. I don't know what the F is hidden in his name is, but they're claiming they were all conspiracies. Members of this Truth and Reconciliation community include Oliver Stone, Alec Baldwin, Martin Sheen, Rob Rayner, David Crosby, Mort Sal. Essentially, no actual analytic experts. Surprisingly, just family members and actors. Or no, wait, no? Oh, so there's a Pentagon Papers whistleblower in there, Daniel Ellsberg, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, MLK's nephew, Isaac Newton, various... Oh, okay, never mind. There are some real analysts in there. My bad. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a career politician, who's amazingly not corrupt somehow, although not really what I would consider competent. Kathleen Kennedy, and then MLK's nephew, Isaac Newton Ferris Jr. Wow, I somehow missed that. Those are the four major assassinations of the last 20th century, the previous century. Man, if they can prove all those were conspiracy theories, every last one of them, real conspiracies, oh, that'd be a major coup. I believe in some conspiracies, but I still follow the principle of KISS, or keep it simple, stupid. If you keep your conspiracies simple and believable and provable, then you probably have a greater chance of finding out the real truth. Bottom line is, though, if they can prove this, and I hope they do. If it's really true, I hope they find it. And if it's not, then an investigative probe should reveal all the facts and finally put this stuff to rest. So whether it's true or not, an investigation is warranted. Because there's so many unanswered questions. And I just hope everything goes well. I wish you well, TRC. Get your job done, man. Let's find out these questions. Prince Philip has been caught driving without a seatbelt. I think the British should seriously consider the possibility of senility. I mean, what is he, like 90 plus? He's an old man. He's probably he's probably senile. Shouldn't let a guy like that old drive. I mean, I suppose that would be seen as sort of oppressive legislation. So maybe not legislative, but maybe just make it like a cultural institution. That families should encourage members who are in their 90s to not drive. Especially when you're somebody as important as Prince Philip, who Like, he injured one of their attendants, his royal protector, who ended up, not even get compensated the family for her injuries, conveniently enough. Probably because they don't want to admit that there's something wrong with Prince Philip. He's obviously losing his mind. The way he's been acting lately, even after 2 days after his accident, he continues to go back driving. Like, have you considered the possibility that maybe you're losing your mind? Becoming senile? It's probably very likely. And to our final story today, we want to talk about conspiracies. Jack Dorsey admits that there is some mainstream social media collusion. But he states that it's only, has to do with TNCs. And if you only violate people who violate our TNCs, then it could look bad, of course. It could look like mass censorship. He's claiming that anyone who's been thrown off their platforms have violated TNCs, and that the coordination is just for the purposes of corporate cooperation and trying to crack down on TNC violations. That's what he claims. And honestly, that could be true. That could be true, and then they're just doing it very badly, very incompetently. But a lot of people will think that there is a conspiracy, but they can't obviously prove that there's any sort of conspiracy, of course. And this sort of will steal their thunder a bit when he admits that there is some collusion, but that he offers a different conclusion than theirs. So yes, there you go, conspiracy theorists. There's mainstream collusion, but it was for a completely different conclusion than you thought it was. Or so it would seem. Me personally, I think that there is some SJW snowflake influence in the situation. There is some real doxing going on, like false flags and so forth. Is it corporate censorship, or is it just what Jack Dorsey claimed about the TNC violations? If you only follow people who violate TNCs, then yeah, it could look that way. His explanation is entirely plausible, but by no means dismisses the claim. I would say that further investigation is definitely merited into this area of discussion. People need to be around here, need to be quiet. Anyway, that's it for Culture Shock today, folks. I'm out.